Good morning. I am the rationalist environmentalist, or environmental rationalist if you like. I'd like to introduce the idea of rational environmentalism to give it a different view on the idea of environmentalism and how we deal with climate change from a rational point of view, not a totally irrational point of view, and create a lot of irrational economic regressives and negatives in the process. I'm speaking from Australia, so I speak from an Australian perspective. Our Prime Minister recently agreed to this Paris Accord, and our politicians are sort of now afraid of saying yes, we need to burn coal because it's the cheapest way of creating energy, electricity. But they've agreed to let Germans and everyone else, Russians, everyone else will be burning more coal because they have to. As their population grows, their economy grows, you have to create more energy. You can't create a greater economy if you reduce the amount of energy available. Two things are totally linked together. And yet in Australia they're reducing the capacity to grow the economy, which is totally irrational. And to add to the irrationality that we in Australia, with such a small population, are going to be somehow affecting the climate if we stop burning coal when everyone else is. Now that's obviously totally irrational. Our politicians, in other words, are no longer catering to the average, practically minded people in the middle, wanting to keep their family warm in winter and pay off the house and run a car and do all the things that people basically aspire to, which these politicians they all have got those things in spades and plenty in the bank, and they don't really give a damn, obviously. The idea of electricity as a private ownership thing is actually an economic disaster for a society, and it made it very, very difficult now for politicians, almost impossible for them to budget in a forward estimate sort of sense, because you can estimate the compound negatives of massively increasing electricity costs. Same time as housing costs go up, you can compound that and show that there are dire consequences in the near future for your economy and the people in it with that irrational concept. Now, the idea of having a rational look at climate change is what is the most important aspect to understand the meaning of it, so that you can then prepare in a rational and logical manner towards what the worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is being unable to feed your people through lack of water or lack of warmth. That's the two things. If the climate gets warmer, that does not stop you feeding your people, because you can grow food within a controlled environment. So it's the way we're dealing with the food aspect of it in this nation that is a failure, an irrational aspect of the climate change policy, as well as the fact they're putting so many people out of work through it. That's also irrational. If you need to grow your revenue, it's irrational to create unemployment so there's less tax. It's irrational. So the whole of their climate change policy, as is with many of their policies, their meaning of them is not explained logically in any practical or positive sense. So it actually has a real meaning in a real context that's rational, so we can say, okay, we can plan ahead with that. They're doing the very, very opposite to what they ought to be doing if there's a problem in the future with climates. The thing about climates is, because we may get to a solar minimum, which means that there's less solar radiation, and there are scientists predicting that by 2030, therefore the climate may be cooler. The offset is the less sun energy coming from the sun may offset any global warming effect. And people are ignoring this very, very simple aspect of the variations in Earth's climate. It's caused by the sun and other matters that equally and more powerfully affect the climate than what man is with CO2. And 2 degrees warmer in Russia might be very welcome. They will burn less coal than if it's warmer in northern climates. Right? They will burn less coal. If it's colder, they will burn more coal. The colder it is, the more coal is burned in the world, and that's that simple. Because, say, imagine in Germany or anywhere else where people think, oh, let's have wind generators, let's have solar panels. Now, those people are speaking from, they've never experienced the cold that is in the northern hemisphere, where millions of people live, where it can be 6 inches of snow all over your solar panels and no wind blowing. There is no energy available to keep warm, and many people are going to become sick and die, or the whole place comes to a standstill because of it. And I suspect that the irrational thinking of the people in Australia is they've never experienced climate as they have in the northern hemisphere, and they don't get the concept of what climate change is. Yes, it gets warm, but it can also get extremely bloody cold. And which one would you bank on? If it's warmer, you've still got to grow your food. If it's colder, you have to prepare to grow your food. The Germans have worked this out. They worked out they cannot grow the food, or cannot look after their society with wind and solar, and they have to burn more coal. And so the Chinese, so the Russians, so it is everyone else, but in Australia we're told we can't burn it, which is totally and utterly irrational. It's irrational in a few years' time if they keep this up in Australia, where people are losing their mortgages and they can't pay for their houses, and the politicians and their friends behind the scenes are buying them all up, because that's what's really going on behind the scenes here. Faceless people with heartless people don't give a damn about the average person struggling, an average honest person struggling to put food on their table, pay a house off and have a reasonable life. They don't do nothing about traffic jams, they don't do nothing about anything. It's all talk and meaningless talk, with these irrational politicians pushing out more and more irrational policies. We need to get back to a rational scenario where regions own their power, electricity power, right? They become a cooperative, they all become shareholders in it. That means they acquire it, they get a loan from somewhere, everyone does this. The thing is, the payments stay the same right throughout the loan. Therefore, the electricity price, the payments for that, it always remains the same if you do the deal right, and you can do. Therefore, you can stratify or scale your electricity charges to your people according to their ability to pay, and therefore, not only do you create a better social environment and psychological environment, you also create a better economic environment. And surely that's the major responsibility of rational politicians. But it's a shame we don't have any of those. Anyway, this is Graham Gordon Thomas, the Rational Environmentalist. Thank you.